actually was awarded a full scholarship in music. I played in the band with the tuba to go to Memphis State, but I was working the pharmacy as a soldier. So I had the opportunity to go to Ole Miss and pay my way. I was going to Memphis State for free. So I decided that I liked the pharmacy so well that I would go to Ole Miss. So back in those days, you know, it wasn't horse and wagons, but we didn't have cars. Students very few of us had cars. So I did this some even, hitchhiked from Molly Branch.
You hitchhiked?
Hitchhiked, I sure did.
With your thumb up?
Thumb up, I turned my suitcase to the highway, it says Ole Miss.
Everybody.
And I always got it right.
It was safe.
And over there in that old chemistry building, pharmacy classes, solid glass, and it just came in there like 125 degrees, no air conditioning. You were sitting there sweating, and all chemical formulas of so and the molecular biology and all that stuff. So I'm going to faint. You ever get in there and get those Bunsen burners and build those sweating and But anyway, Miss Alta Ray Galt, she was the classes she teach, one of the advanced pharmacy classes from a college, I believe. So she said the experiment that day was on a stool about this high, it was real high. She said, we're going to do this, you know, we're going to check this, and meninges disease, and just certain things about getting dizzy, you know. I told her, I can't do that. I said, I really get sick. You can't spin me around, because right now I could go around a couple of times, and there's no way I can get out of this building. And she said, oh, you're going to be all right. What do you tell a professor? So I held onto that stool, and she spun me around, and I thought, oh, dear God, I'm going to blow up my lap. Had my eyes shut. She said, everybody out there, I said it was 50 people in the class, watch his eyes when he opens his eyes, watch the reflex. And so she said, open your eyes. She spun out on down. I went, open my eyes, and I went, whoop. I immediately flew backwards. When I went backwards, I kicked it on the chin, knocked the glasses off, hit on the concrete floor with my head, and a concussion would like to kill me. Is that the old wire? No, right. That was in that building. And I walked out.
He was here during the James Meredith.
And I walked out that building, and a federal marshal came and he said, son, get the hell out of here. They're fixing to hit you. So I took off to running down through here. They started bombing me. Right out in there with these riot bombs. Of course I couldn't see. And I thought to run into some trees. So then about that time I felt an arm grab me, and some boys had seen me being bombed out in there, and they threw me in the back seat of the car and took me off the campus. Then I came back in to get my car and went to my room, and we got bombed on the 3rd floor of another building. And my roommate was going to jump out the 3rd floor window. Ooh. And I had to hold on to him. Oh no, you can't jump, it's going to kill you. So we wrapped up in towels.
How many days did that go on?
Well, actually, it was just really that night, basically all night. The next morning, it was.
How was going back to
we were
class
just
after
so
that?
upset because, you know, I was a senior in pharmacy school. We thought we might lose our accreditation. There I had worked so hard. And
so did class just resume as normal, or how did that go about?
In about a week.
About a week.
And they had roadblocks all up and down here, federal marshals. You could put 20,000 troops here.
Wow.
They were camped out, and so you'd have to get out, ready, go pull your hood up, check all under your cars. It was an encampment here. It was not a fun year.
Wow. So did y'all have to stay off campus that night?
Well, yes, I did several times. Well, my room, you know, was bombed, so then we didn't get any sleep that night. So we didn't have any, you know, we didn't have any rooms. So you was trying to run to get away from all the stuff going on. I wasn't involved in the rioting, but it was a lot of people came in here. It was, I don't know, 2 or 3 people killed. I don't know what's going on. But I'd see them, I tried to save my car and I couldn't get out. I finally got a car at the end, so I didn't have to hitchhike.
I started when I was 15, and by 21 I owned the store.
Wow.
It had been there 50 years. The old gentleman wanted to retire, so asked me if I wanted to buy it, and I told him, I said, well, I don't have any money. I mean, I didn't have a cent. You know, I had to work my way through college, and so he took a piece of paper, it was about half the size of a piece of notebook paper, and he wrote it out on there when he owed me, and we didn't have a lawyer sign anything, and he wrote on that piece of paper, and I still had that piece of paper where he wrote on how I would pay him back.
Well,
That's the way we did business. I actually work at a hospital pharmacy now.
Mental hospital, I believe.
Mental, yes.
How's that?
Well, it's interesting. I really like it because I did retail for almost 50 years. This is my 52nd year as a pharmacist. So when I worked at retail, I sold out after 38 years, and I sold out to the medicine shop. I had a medicine shop. I worked there with him, helping him about 10 years. Retail is very, very difficult this day with the insurance. Are y'all all pharmacists too?
no, sir.
Oh,
We're all
no.
different, I think.
That's
So
fine.
it's very difficult standing all the insurance and the cards. They're just it just opens up. It's just a lot of problems dealing with the insurance, and you have to stand. You can't really sit down at a pharmacy and work. So at my age, I don't really want to do that anymore. So at the hospital, I have my own office. I go down and fill my prescriptions, and take it down to the nurses' stations, and talk to the nurses how the patients are doing. And some of them are real interested. Some of them told me, I was walking down the hall the other day, and she said, "Did you know I've been dead 3 days?" And I said, "Oh." I can't say too much about what's going on, but you really get in some interesting conversations. They grab you and hug you. They think I'm a doctor or God. I don't know. The guy the 2 pharmacists that I work with, the older gentleman, like the one I bought the pharmacy from, he was a real Southern gentleman, and I respected him a lot, and so I wanted to please him. And I always was an excellent student, so I didn't have any trouble with grades. I was the most intellectual senior in my class, and the highest grades and awards and all that stuff. So I always wanted to excel in whatever I did. So the 2 pharmacists that I worked with was the people I want to replace, and then my family. And I wanted to be a success. And you know, I'm reading right now because I deal with education on some of the committees in Jackson, and you know, like there's a theory about, you know, instant gratification. You know, the successful people are people that do not cater to instant gratification. That you say you have a goal out here. People that usually fail, they don't have goals and they go for instant gratification. You know, that's where you get into dope. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't cook. I mean, I could do all of it. I had the opportunity, but I don't do it because that is instant gratification. So I've always been able to see the future and see my goals right here, not right here. So sit right here and say, that's the wrong direction. And I'm a very determined person to do I'm very strong-willed, you can say that.
You're fine.
Well, first of all, you need to see what qualifications you have. Is your personality suited to that job? Not everybody could handle being a pharmacist nor a doctor. So you don't want to pursue something that you really not. Some people go into things they're not really qualified to be. Even, I know pharmacists that you're just not qualified to be a pharmacist, but they have to go to another field. So your personality, and can you handle that? And another big thing is that word of wisdom this day and time, you know that young men, and I tell Christian that, my grandson, I said, you know,
He said, well, I want to be this or that, but you have to be practical too. So I mean, you need to know that what you graduate with, the degree that you can use it. How many people you gonna stand there on a corner want to be an anthropologist? How many dinosaurs? Those are areas that it's important to me to be able to support family. You're supposed to make a difference. And if you live your whole life, it don't make a difference in anything. Your life, you just wasted your life. You need to make a difference. You need to be a person of character, strong. If it's a mother, I'm not saying a mother can be something. What I am today is because of 3 or 4 women teachers, my mother and my grandmother. So those are very important things to do in life. But you need to make a difference. And I know people that just wasted their life. It's so sad. It's maybe smarter, and some big boys that just take their life away, and it's really sad.
But I still pass people in like Kroger that will stop me. One lady stopped me recently and she was just crying, big old tears coming down her face. She said, I can remember when my family couldn't pay their utility bill and Mr. Hamilton paid the bill. But what you do is he paid the bill, but he charged it, and then as they could pay it off, they would pay it off. And this was this girl's mother. She remembered it. So he did that all the time. I'm thinking, no wonder we don't get a new car, because he's giving it all away. I mean, that made a difference in a lot of lives. My new car.
It's not all about money. I never was about trying to get rich. It was all about being useful and helping people in society.
It's a service.
Yeah, well, and back in my day when we started, the local pharmacy was this day and time, you don't think about anything going down here, CVS or Walgreens, just somebody behind you. You don't know who they are, and you never will know. But back in my day, the pharmacist and the doctor, they took care of all the needs. If there was a doctor on duty, we only had one doctor. So I had to be the nurse practitioner too. When you came in with the doctor was off for the weekend, on vacation, he said, take your tongue out. Yeah, we're going to sort it out. Oh, I can sit back there, it's plus some so-and-so. I'll give you some. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it was all a big family.
Do you think that has something to do with living in such a small town?
Yeah, it does make a difference. And like I say, I guess I got learned, the family values and history. I served 5 generations. Some of the people, when I started at 20, were like 80, and they're on down the line, and their children, great-grandchildren, great-great. So I could tell you, I really learned a lot about watching families, and you'd see some families just really go the wrong direction because somebody out here didn't make a difference. And you see other families, somebody really made a difference in that family. And the generations that followed that, they were a lot more successful, stronger people, better values. You take, if grandma and grandpa both were sots, drinking, drunk all the time, their kids and grandkids was probably going to follow some bad traits. So, I learned a lot from watching, then by knowing oral history. Great.
Just to start, will you kind of explain your current position?
My current position. I work at the Ravine restaurant in Oxford, Mississippi. I am, for all intents and purposes, the pastry chef, and I'm in charge of the bread program there, or at least I make all the breads. And I also assist in writing the brunch menu, and I work both brunch services, and I also do some catering. I'm kind of the catch-all off of the main line of the people that cook there every night.
That's awesome.
My start, now looking back at it, I've always worked in the hospitality industry at some point. I worked summer camp in high school. Worked some catering, and when I first started college, one of my first real jobs was waiting tables when I was a sophomore in Jackson. And then I failed out of Ole Miss my sophomore or junior year. I had a 0.7, my junior year. It's really easy. You just don't go to class except for the test, and then you don't study for the test, and The only class I did well in was scuba diving. That spring semester. So I filled out, and I moved home and worked construction for about 6 months. And one day, I had a dream while riding to the construction site about snow skiing. It stuck in my mind all day, and I ended up moving. I applied that night to about 5 different ski resorts in Colorado. Got a job, moved out to Colorado that November, like 2 days after my middle niece was born, and was a ski lift operator at a ski resort. And then after my first year there, I had a friend that opened a tattoo parlor, and when I went in to get my first tattoo, I was waiting for him to open up. He was like, "Hey, why don't you go grab a margarita while you wait?" I went to this little taco bar down the street and had a margarita, met one of the owners. He was from New Orleans. We started talking, and I was looking for a second job. So I applied to be a waiter. They hired me to be a cook like a month later. And I started cooking and fell in love with it. And was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
To cook.
My favorite thing to cook, I love making fresh pasta. It's one of my favorite things in the world. Just working with it and like all the different flavors and the different shapes and how they adapt to different sauces and things like that. I love cooking big pieces of meat, just because there's like so much more fun to cook like a whole brisket or a whole like rib roast as opposed to just like one steak. It's much more like challenging and like, beautiful, and it's great. And that's one of the things I like about doing catering and small private events. Is being able to present like a big piece of meat to like 12 people. Like, I'm going to carve this and then feed it to you. Yeah. You know, the first guy I ever worked for, the guy in Colorado at the taco bar, you know, he had been cooking for a long time. He was a taco bar. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was fun, and he was trying to do a good thing. And he was like, you know, if you're really going to do this, then he sent me to read like Anthony Bourdain's books, Kitchen Confidential, and like that's a realistic life of what it's like. Especially like before I started cooking, of what it was like to be a cook. It's, you know, you're working when all your friends are out partying. You're working when everybody else is at a hotel, is at like a holiday. It's your days off, or when everybody else is at work. So it's definitely, we like cooks and restaurant industry employees exist in like a separate universe, like a side universe or dark universe, as opposed to the rest of like everybody else. But it's fun. It's a little bit wilder, and growing up never really appealed to me, and I wanted to live in a world where I enjoyed working and living in a world where like excesses were a little bit okay. So like minor alcoholism and, you know, the occasional drug use was fine. It is definitely the restaurant business, and it's been a lot of fun and some really great parties. But
Meet some good people.
Yeah.
So
I grew up thinking I wanted to be a doctor. So I came to Ole Miss as a freshman forensic chemistry major.
No wonder you
Pretty
fell out.
bad.
I would have too.
I did that for my first year, and then I switched to business management and did well in that for a little while, and then I failed out. Took 3 years off when I was in Colorado for 2 years, came back to Ole Miss, came back to Oxford, lived with my sister for a while. Worked at a restaurant that used to be where Lenore's is, whatever that, called L&M's Kitchen and Slimeria. And that was, I guess, where I really got into cooking. I lost the question. Forensic chemistry. My major was forensic chemistry, but then I changed it to hospitality management when I came back for my second try at college.
So you finished from here?
I did. I graduated in hospitality management. I didn't have anything below like a 3.5.
That's awesome.
Once I was like, I had started cooking and was focused and had a job, and
It just took some time.
yeah, it took me some time, and I found my passion.
Yeah.
And once I had that, I had motivation and focus. It was a lot easier to study.
Yeah, if you like what you're doing.
You know, food, definitely. I love restaurants more than anything else. Like, you know, there's so many different aspects of the hospitality industry. You know, resorts, hotels, you know, spas, all of those things, you know, are all inclusive. But it's a service industry, and I love being of service. And so, like, that's my favorite thing about the restaurant industry. And like, I like, you know, small restaurant groups. You know, we get to, people come to celebrate. People come to have a good time. You know, they don't want to cook for themselves. They want to go and eat. It becomes a thing. My favorite table, I've always said, is the 8 top in the front corner. That's had like maybe one bottle of wine too much, just laughing just a little bit too loud, and is there about 15 minutes after we close, and having a great time. And that's why I cook. Like, I love giving people that experience that they might not, be able to, being a part of those times in that life. Like big dreams, like grandiose dreams, like where my ego just like completely flies off the hill, because I am just a little artistic, and cooks in general, chefs in general, don't have small egos. I want to like be a part of changing food culture in Mississippi and how we look at ourselves and health, and how we eat and what we eat. And Mississippi is such a great state. We have so much land. There's no reason we shouldn't be getting local produce everywhere, and great food, and great beef, great pork. There's not an excuse for the quality of food we're eating. And it's starting to change. There's some really great people doing some really cool stuff, and I just kind of want to be a part of that. And Mississippi is my home. I've lived here most of my life, and if I can make it better for the next generation, I would love to. That's like my biggest dream. Mm-hmm. Try anything. Always be open. The best times of my life, the most fun I've ever had, the greatest experience have always been when like somebody is like, hey, let's go do this, and I'm on the fence about it, but then in the end I'm just kind of like, screw it, why not? It's a new experience. Be open to those things, and then put yourself out there, put yourself in uncomfortable positions, and put yourself out there to like be alone, be the only one, like, so you don't know anybody, and force yourself to make friends and meet new people. Because all those things are, help you grow, and new people are interesting. You don't know them. Safe is not always the best.
We just killing time. I'm waiting to go. So y'all need to go.